Jeepies, I'm your host Sid, and welcome to another episode of Do Talking to Me's Scooby-Doo's Day. Before getting into this episode's review, I have to mention that since the previous episode of Do Talking to Me, both Ken Spears and Joe Ruby, the creators of Scooby-Doo, have passed away. They were both longtime contributors to Hanna-Barbera, working for the company 10 years before they even created Hanna-Barbera's flagship franchise. Beyond creating the characters of Scooby-Doo alongside the late Yuao Takamoto, who drew the designs, Ruby and Spears wrote nearly every episode of the original series together. The duo would later found their own animation studio, the eponymous Ruby Spears Productions, which eventually became a sister company of Hanna-Barbera in the early 80s. Ken Spears' and Joe Ruby's contributions to the field of animation is criminally overlooked. Beyond creating one of the most widely recognized cartoon characters of all time, they widened the appeal of TV animation and influenced generations of cartoonists. Scooby-Doo is one of the few cartoons of its time, especially from TV, that not only has been consistently rerun since, but consistently gets new entries with biannual film releases and new shows every few years, not to mention all the merchandise and cross-promotions that have happened along the way. This might sound funny to say, but Scooby-Doo isn't just a popular cartoon, it's a cultural phenomenon. Joe Ruby and Ken Spears might be gone now, but what they made is immortal, and their memory will never leave us. Rest in peace. Now on to this week's review of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Episode 11, A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts. The episode begins unusually. Instead of the gang stumbling on a spooky location, they're intentionally seeking one out, in this case Franken Castle, which I guess is owned by a former SNL cast member.
Hey, there it is, gang. Franken Castle.
The castle is supposedly an authentic Transylvanian castle, relocated and rebuilt brick by brick in the States, running as some backwoods roadside tourist trap, which is a strange spot for the gang to want a vacation at. I mean, they already spend all their time dealing with the borderline supernatural for free. Would they really want to pay for the privilege?
I can hardly wait to see inside it.
The gang might encounter monsters on the regular though, but they certainly don't know much about monsters because they frequently mention werewolves being from Transylvania instead of vampires.
Remember those stories about werewolves living in Transylvania?
Aren't werewolves more of a Romanian kind of thing, Daphne? The episode also has Shaggy being uncharacteristically skeptical of the existence of werewolves.
Werewolves? There are no werewolves, Scooby. You come back here.
That feels like a line Velma was supposed to say. Before the gang actually reaches Franken Castle, though, they visit another roadside tourist attraction, a fortune teller played by guest star June Foray, the late veteran voice actor of such characters as Rocky the Squirrel and Granny from Looney Tunes. She made a couple other sporadic appearances in Scooby stuff after this episode aired.
Gather round, my pretties, and we'll peer into the crystal ball.
Anyway, though, the fortune teller acts as a harbinger of doom, warning the gang of the supernatural dangers lurking in Franken Castle, a textbook horror trope, which is appropriate because this episode is, in essence, a big homage to the classic Universal Monsters horror cycle.
The caretaker ran away in fear today. I warn you, you will meet your doom if you go there.
Despite Franken Castle no longer having an active caretaker to allow the gang in legally, they still insist upon trespassing because who's gonna stop them? The police? They can't even take care of middle-aged men dressed as ghosts on their own.
See? Everything's all right.
At the castle, the gang not only encounters a werewolf, but also a Frankenstein monster and even a sideburns-rocking Dracula. These are the titular ghosts of Franken Castle, but Velma is not impressed.
You are not welcome in the castle. Go now, or abandon all hope of seeing the sun again.
You stop that.
One of very many Scooby moments to have become a meme. Again, whether you're willing to accept it or not, Scooby-Doo is a cultural phenomenon. The villains of the episode are just based on super common, classical monster archetypes and are a little bit generic, but the fact that you get 3 monsters in one episode makes up for the lack of originality.
Now your spirits will dwell here in this house forever.
The episode's monsters may not be what you think of when you think Scooby villains, but these monster designs are admittedly striking renditions of the classic Universal versions, and they've managed to make continued appearances in promotional art over the years. Heck, the werewolf in this episode actually looks like a werewolf, unlike the werewolf in a later episode. A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts is another episode that doesn't have much of a mystery going for it. I mean, the only possible suspect in the whole story is that fortune teller, who totally can't be the actual villain. This episode makes up for a lack of intrigue, though, just by being a showcase of the characters and how they're able to stand on their own. Early on in the episode, the gang gets totally split up in the castle, danger-prone Daphne's inability to run off a drawbridge in time being the catalyst of the gang's investigation. Of course, there's the usual gags where Shag and Scoob try to scrounge up some food in a dilapidated haunted castle, winding up with nothing but whatever fried moonbeams are. We've all been there.
What a menu!
One of the real highlights of the episode, though, is Velma. This is the first episode where she's given a chance to shine as a comedic character. Previous episodes played around with Velma's nearsightedness, but this episode really runs with it for quite a bit. She even thinks torture equipment is some kind of playground.
It must be the playroom. There's so many interesting toys.
Actually, how did that skeleton get there? Did they move the skeleton from Transylvania? There are also some other examples of the gang not actually knowing much about monsters besides Daphne thinking werewolves are from Transylvania. Daphne also thinks Dracula is just some weird man.
What happened?
A weird man chased me into this room and locked the door.
And Shaggy even calls the Frankenstein monster a ghost when he plans to soak him with a hose.
You jerk the sheet off, and I'll blast him with this, and he'll be one soggy ghost.
A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts is an odd episode, and it kinda just peters out eventually. After the gang unsuccessfully catches Dracula, they figure out he's probably just that fortune teller, so they return to her wagon to confront her and maybe also rough her up a bit too.
Look, Scooby's got the tapestry.
Give me that, you mutt!
After the fortune teller makes a run for it, the local copper shows up and solves the mystery for the gang. The fortune teller behind the 3 galloping ghosts in the castle is in actuality Big Bob Oakley, the actor, a con artist wanted in 7 states who is trying to whisk away the castle's jewel-woven tapestry. It calls into question, though, if Oakley succeeded in finding the jewels, why didn't he just make a break for it in his getaway wagon when he had the chance? Was he hoping to continue his career as a fortune teller in the area?
Might have gotten away with it, too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dog.
During the denouement, the gang decides to have a picnic outside this haunted castle at 1 a.m. where Shaggy makes a sandwich directly on the grass instead of on a plate like some kind of savage.
I don't understand how Oakley pulled that trick with a bat.
The gang wonders, though, how Oakley was able to do that bat special effect, and Scooby gives the answer, but honestly, they should be wondering how Oakley was able to switch monster costumes in the space of seconds. That's the real mystery. A Gaggle of Galloping Ghosts isn't one of the best episodes in the series. Its lack of a mystery and a more original villain hurts its appeal a little bit, but it makes up for its flaws just by being a fun story about classic monsters causing all kinds of hijinks in an old-school haunted castle, so it gets the job done. I give episode 11 4 boxes of Scooby snacks out of 5.
Time for a little ventriloquism. Where you going, fuzzy face?
Before I go, I got a bonus full-length commentary of this and other Scooby-Doo episodes up on my Patreon. Link in the description if you're interested in supporting the Dr. Wolfula channel and getting some bonus content while you're at it. Oh, and in case you guys were wondering, the reason why I say Jeepies is because it's a combination of Jeepers and Jinkies. So, there's your explanation. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, journey further into the Wolfula by clicking the subscribe and bell buttons to find out when all of my latest videos and streams go live. This video was brought to you by my kind supporters on Patreon, whose names are scrolling by. Support the channel today on Patreon and get access to bonus movie and TV commentaries, audiobooks, comic readings, film live streams, and credits at the end of videos. Finally, I'd like to give a very special thanks to my true Wolfulite supporters on Patreon and my YouTube channel memberships for their pledges. Their support is greatly appreciated and helps the channel and my dark influence continue to grow. Thank you all once more from the bottom of my evil heart for your help. Alrighty, Dr. Wolfula signing out. See you all next time at the Wolfula.